This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Let's get ready to
Welcome to the Junkyard Pod. I'm Tony Pesta, joined by Jackson Flickinger. And Jackson, you may have heard, the Cleveland Cavaliers are the only undefeated team left standing in the NBA. Many people are saying it's the best start in franchise history. The Cavs are 9-0 with a chance to go 10-0 on Friday night against an old foe, the Golden State Warriors. We're going to talk a little bit about that game later, as well as some of the key reasons for Cleveland's success up to this point. But first, before we start, let me say you can find the Junkyard Pod on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Use the links in the description so you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like the show and you want to support us, then following on all those platforms, leaving a like and dropping a comment is the best way to do that. But okay, so I want to start with the key reasons for the Cavaliers' success so far. But before we can really do that, we have to understand how successful they have been. So I said at the top, Cleveland, they're the only undefeated team left in the NBA. Only 5 other teams since the year 2000 have begun a season 9-0 or better. Of those 5 teams, 2 of them made it to the finals, 2 of them made it to the conference finals, and one of them, the 2023 Milwaukee Bucks, they lost in the first round, little fluky. But the point is, history tends to suggest that teams that begin the season this strong end up being legitimate title contenders. So sure, 9-0 start to the year. It's a small sample size, but it's a meaningful one. Now, real quick, just to, explain what they've done in this sample size, the Cavs have the second best offense, the third best point differential, the 5th best defense. They're shooting the best effective field goal percentage in the league by almost 3 percentage points, way above the pack there. And opponents are shooting nearly 10% worse than the Cavs in their games against Cleveland so far. Compared to how the Cavs are shooting, the Cavs are holding opponents to 52% effective field goal percentage. The Cavs are shooting 60% in those games. So to wrap up this opening segment, anyone talking about the Cavs without mentioning that this is a completely different team offensively and that they have solved something, you're missing the point. If you're asking, is this a fluke? Is this the same Cavs? It's not. It's a very different team. This is a team that has firmly been one of the best defenses in the league for the last 4 years. And now they just learned how to score the ball too. So Jackson, the offense, it's clicking. The Cavs have been great. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it does come back to the offense. The offense has been great. Just Darius moving off ball, Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen being used in a little more creative ways, having better spacing principles so they can, 1, create open shots, and 2, get to the basket a lot easier, and also playing a lot faster. I believe you pointed this out on Twitter that the Cavs are like getting into their they're getting into their sets way earlier. They're getting their shot up much earlier than they were last year. So they're overall just generating better, more decisive offense. I think you see this best when you're talking about Caris LeVert, who's having the best start in his career. His skills are being put to the best possible way because he is, asked to do a very specific thing, and he is performing that with confidence. And I think that's a microcosm of this entire offense, where every single person is buying into their role and have also been put into a position to actually fulfill that. So that is really like a simplified version of what is working with this team, but you're seeing it carry over every single night, where I would say that first half against the Bucks in Milwaukee was the only time you didn't have like a really good offensive process. But every other game, the offensive process has been phenomenal. So that's really the biggest difference with this team. And you're getting that offensive process. And as you pointed out earlier, the defense is still there.
Yeah. And we expected the defense to be there, and you just said it, the way we talk about the offense might sound like we're oversimplifying things, but sometimes it can be very simple. Like we mentioned this on the playback stream, we were doing the watch party for their last game, and Caris LeVert kind of had an old-fashioned Caris LeVert time possession where the shot clock was winding down and all eyes were on him to create something. And we pointed that out because we were like, wow, we actually really haven't seen that this season. It was something that we would see so often last year and over the last few seasons, where really there was so much relying on Caris LeVert to just and not just Karras, it's Darius and Donovan, even Max Strus at times. So many possessions just came down to, can the Cavs create something out of nothing? Can you beat a defense that's at a standstill? And the big change, the big simple change that's happened is there's way more ball movement. There's way more off-ball movement. And the Cavs' best scorers, Caris LeVert, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, they're catching the ball with a half-step advantage, with a defender closing out or chasing them.
Also, the lack of like the expanded rotations has really helped out as well. There's only 2 players playing above 30 minutes. That's Jarrett Allen and Jarrett Allen and Donovan Mitchell. They're like a tick above 30. And that, I think, just allows everybody to really buy into this offensive system, get down the court quickly, get to their spots. When you're playing, 38 minutes a game, you're not able to have that same kind of aggression that the Cavs have. They seem more like, a hockey team where there's a line change and everyone's coming out and sprinting the whole time, as opposed to a team that's just walking it up the court and just trying to conserve energy because they know that they're going to need it in the fourth quarter when they're playing 12 minutes that quarter. So that's worth pointing out too when we're talking about why the offense looks different. It's a lot of Donovan Mitchell knows that I'm not going to be in there for 36, 37 minutes, so I can give it my all whenever I'm out there.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic point, and it ties into what we've already been saying, because the Cavs have just completely cut out most of those stagnant or slow possessions that used to be the norm, whether it's because their offense, the process isn't great, or because guys are just tired because they're playing relatively high minutes. I still all last season was saying that the minute load wasn't crazy. It was maybe slightly above average, but I certainly didn't expect Kenny to be able to cut it down the way that he has. And that has been a huge success for this Cavs team. And it's definitely translated to why they're playing so much faster and better on offense. For context here, and you mentioned that the stat earlier, and I have it written right here. So the Cavs last season, about 20% of their offensive possessions ended with a shot going up with 7 or fewer seconds on the clock. That's about a fifth of their possessions coming down to the final 7 seconds of the clock. This season, it's only about 13% of their possessions falling that late. So that's a big gap. And to build on that, the Cavs are second in the league in attempting what NBA.com would call early shot clock attempts. That means 18 to 15 seconds left on the clock. The Cavs are taking second most shots in that time frame. Last season, they ranked 12th. And so the reason why me and Jackson are hammering home this point is because momentum really exists and it matters in the NBA. When you're pounding the air out of the ball for 17, 20 seconds and you get nothing out of it, when you're taking all that time and you're still not one of the better teams in terms of offensive rating, it just feels deflating. It's just constant deflating moments. And when that happens, not only are you feeling the weight of it as the Cavs, but your opponent is rallying behind those stops too. I tweeted this, but think about how encouraging it is when you play defense for 20 seconds and you get a stop. That's how it felt to play the Cavs over and over again. And so now they're not conceding that momentum anymore. Even if you miss an early shot clock attempt, which can lead to runouts, it can also, lead to momentum for your opponent, but it just feels so much, it feels like less of a backbreaker for the Cavs when you're getting constant shots up.
Yeah, and also I think that even though you're walking up the court to kind of almost like preserve energy, when you're running pick and rolls where you know that you have to create off of them, they're like high stress possessions in the sense that, you have to do everything yourself. So that is tiring, knowing that every time down the floor that, like, if you're Donovan Mitchell or if you're Darius Garland, that, hey, I'm going to have to run this pick and roll. I'm going to have to create something all by myself. Now, Darius is running off ball. You're getting more action away from the play. So that just opens up everything. You're not really like manufacturing it in the same way. So it's, even though it's like more moving in a way, I think it's less like stressful or less impactful. Like they talk about when they talk about MLB pitchers, they talk about like pitch count, but also like high stress pitch count. Like, how many pitches did you have when there's guys on second and third, stuff like that, where it's still one pitch, but it's a more stressful, tiring pitch as opposed to like, a pitch in the second inning when no one's on base. And that's what it seems like a lot of the Cavs offense is. A lot of like, we're getting ahead in counts early. We're just doing the easy things.
And to expand on that, just thinking of like how strenuous the Cavs offense was for probably Donovan Mitchell more than anybody else over the last few years. How many games did it feel like we were only in it or we only won because Donovan Mitchell was just special for 4 quarters, or he went on a huge run where he just single-handedly carried the team? The big thing that, many people have pointed out with the Cavs start to this season, 9-0, they've only gotten like a handful of like awesome Donovan Mitchell moments, and he's been good, to be clear. I'm not saying that he's having a bad season, but he just hasn't had to carry that load. We've had Darius with big games. Evan Mobley's had big games. Jarrett Allen has just been awesome and consistent all year long. And again, it's everything from the rotation to the way that the offense is, everything's being shared. The responsibilities are being shared across the board. Even, Evan Mobley, we talk about him a lot, but those second quarters where he's handling the ball and he's creating offense for himself, that's something that we didn't see under the previous, last 3 seasons, where it never really felt like there was a point in the game that was designated for Evan Mobley. It just felt like every night he was guessing and trying to figure out where he belongs. Now it's the start of the second quarter. Basically every game he gets like 4 or 5 possessions where he's handling the ball in a pick and roll. And that it's not just the second quarter, but just knowing that each night, like, hey, this is the game plan. I'm going to get my touches here. And then everything else is just, cherry on top. It goes a long way towards having an offense and a process that feels so much better than what they had in the previous years.
And that only comes when there's buy-in from Donovan, because Donovan has been sharing the court with Evan in those situations, and he's really just ceded control of the offense to him. It's really like those first 4 minutes of the second quarter always really stand out. And this has allowed him to really pick his spots a lot better. I think of that Lakers game where he just came out guns a-blazing, 11 points in the first couple minutes of the game, just really saying like, hey, this is my court. You're not gonna, come in here and beat us. And then also, you think of the late games against the Bucks, the game in Milwaukee, where they didn't have it going. He wasn't carrying the offense the whole time, but he was able to the last 5 minutes say, hey, I'm going to bring us home. Just watch out. And he kind of did the same thing against New Orleans. He just, they built up a bigger lead, so it wasn't as dramatic, but still he's able to pick his spots a lot better. And that's where, he's the cherry on top of the offense as opposed to the whole offense.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. And there's one more thing that I want to bring up as far as the offense goes before we talk about that Cavs-Warriors matchup. And it's something that I know I've forgotten multiple times. Max Strus is on this roster. He still plays for the Cavaliers. He's going to be out for a little while. We'll see when he's actually available. But when you're talking about the offense and how good they've been already, the biggest addition they've made in the last 2 years to address their offense was getting Max Strus. And so for as good as they've been, and I think certain things are going to come back down to earth. Yeah, I mean, he was in there, but he was the second biggest thing they did to address. Well, right. Probably the third. The second biggest thing was playing Sam Merrill. The first was getting Max Strus. I don't know if there's anything else on the list that I'm forgetting. Maybe I'd probably say hiring Kenny Atkinson also ahead of George Niang on that list. But Niang's been balling.
Shots at Ty Jerome. Continue.
Ty Jerome too. Okay, so Niang's
and Craig Porter Jr.
Okay, no, we won't go that far.
Shots at everybody.
Niang's Niang's right outside the top 5 most important things they've done for the offense. If you can think of any other things, feel free to add that in the comments. But
Luke Travers,
connective tissue. Anyways, what I was trying to get to there is that for as good as this Cavs offense has been before Jackson derailed me, and I do think this is what I was going to say. I do think we'll probably see a slight dip in some of the numbers. They're shooting the best effective field goal percentage by a pretty big gap, more than 2 percentage gap. They're shooting the best. I think they're the best 3-point shooting team in the NBA right now. That'll probably come down at least a little bit. I still think they'll be a top 5 offense, judging by everything we've seen. And they don't even have their second best movement shooter. I feel like we're getting too into semantics. The point is Max Strus is one of the best movement shooters in the NBA, and they haven't even had him yet. And one of the things that is, confusing when you look at the Cavs is their starting lineup, whether it's with Dean Wade out there or Isaac Okoro, it's only registering I think the core forward, they're registering a 72 percentile offensive rating, which is above average, but it's not great. I think Max Strus will help unlock whatever more potential they have there.
That's pretty good. So
it's good. It's well above average.
It's good. I think like last year
right.
it was like 48th percentile. So
it's a huge improvement, which is what I am trying to kind of bridge the gap
between.
It's a
defensive team when you have the two bigs out there. So I want to say that like you would sign up to have that all year. You'd sign up for that offensive rating when you have the two bigs out there.
Yeah,
so
and I agree.
Before you say bad things.
Well, I didn't mean it in a bad way. All I'm saying is that they're 72nd percentile, and they could get even better is the crazy thing. Max Strus can make them even better. And I think the reason why is because we talked about this, I think, on the last pod. Dean Wade's a good shooter, but he's not like a Max Strus type of shooter where he's going to fly off a pin down. He has all this gravity, all this movement. And we've seen Sam Merrill be used in many creative ways with this Cavs offense. I don't think he's played much with the core four. Max Strus, we know he can play with the core four. You're going to see Max Strus flying around the court, taking 8 threes a game. Hopefully he'll shoot closer to 40% like he has in some seasons. That would be huge. But even if he's a 35% shooter, just the way that they're going to be able to use him in pick and rolls, ghost actions, inverted pick and rolls, Evan Mobley, I can't wait to see it. And I think that this Cavs offense could legitimately get even better, even if I think some of their numbers might dip a little bit, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think the most exciting thing is you're going to have another capable ball handler on the court, because as much as we
Dean
separately
and Okoro are also not.
Isaac Okoro, they're not. Nobody's going to say they're good ball handlers, and it's not that Karis LeVert is an isolation master, but he is somebody who can run second side pick and rolls. He is somebody who can initiate actions. You've seen a lot where they've done this where they like to bring up the ball with somebody who's not Mitchell or Garland, so they can get them moving off ball. You saw that like kind of a decent amount with like Yang bringing the ball up the court last game.
Yeah.
So having like Max Strus, that's a role that he can fulfill very, better than anybody else that we mentioned. So that's something that I'm excited for, just seeing how they're going to be using, Allen, Mobley, Mitchell, and Garland off ball when you just have Strus kind of bringing it up the court. So, I'm excited about it, but also like right now things are pretty good. So that's, you'd like to think that the offense could even get better.
Yeah, definitely not trying to get greedy. If they even just maintain where they're at, I'd be pretty happy. But
that's definitely not our brand.
I do think Max Strus could give them an even bigger jump there, just because of his ability. And you nailed it, mentioning the ball handling. We almost completely forgot that. The fact that he can legitimately handle the rock and create plays, that's something that they've been finding success with George Niang, Point Okoro, Point Mobley. They found success with that, but it'll be even better with a guy who can like legitimately play a little point guard.
Just because you say point in front of their name doesn't mean that they can handle the ball.
yeah. They
just want to clarify.
Thank you. That's a good clarifier. But I want to go ahead and move on to talk about the Golden State Warriors, because the Cavs are set to take on the Warriors Friday night in a huge marquee matchup that unfortunately makes this year feel more like 2016 than it already has. But this is a chance for the Cavs to really send a message to the NBA that last year's team is not this year's team. Knocking down the Warriors is as good of a way as any to get that point across. Jackson, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
It's really exciting because the Cavs, they've had a tough schedule that, like, when you first look at the schedule, you'd say, oh yeah, this is tough. They got the Magic, they got the Bucks. Those teams ended up, when they played them, the Bucks suck. The Magic were really beat up,
injured.
No Paolo. So this is a marquee game, and it's exciting because it's a marquee game for both teams, because the Warriors are, I would say the Cavs and Warriors are the two teams that, like, the NBA greater media sphere would say, like, I don't know if I really believe in how good both of these teams are. Like, we believe that the Celtics are good. We believe that the Thunder are good. We don't believe that the Cavs and Warriors are good. And the Warriors last night on Wednesday showed the Celtics how good they were. And I think it would mean something to, do that again in Cleveland. I believe, who's their last game on this road trip? They played somebody else really good, and I'm blanking on who that is. Quick. But
here, give me a second.
This is an opportunity for them to show that, hey, we're not just a fun regular season team. We're a real postseason team. And the Cavs can also say the same thing. And that's that's really what makes this a really fun matchup. It's always fun. Draymond Green's currently questionable, but it's fun to have Steph Curry in the building. Everybody, keying in on him in a big Cavs Warriors game. That's fun. All the Cavs fans will be booing Draymond Green, even if he's sitting on the bench. So, there's always an energy there when those championship Warriors guys come into the building, and it was a really depressing energy for about 5 years because the Warriors would run Colin Sexton and company off the floor, and it'd be like, do we even need to boo Draymond anymore? Because this is just sad. But now, it's going to be a good game.
Twice last year.
Yeah, last year was a good game. The game in Golden State, Draymond Green was one of the 23 games that he was kicked out of. So that was fun for yelling at Donovan Mitchell. And then I believe the other game was a big Craig Porter Jr. game, if I'm wrong. It was an early Craig Porter Jr. game. I think it was like Garland's one of his best games. So, it should be fun. It should be entertaining. Should be fast paced. Should be two really good defenses. The Warriors have like one of the best defenses in the league. The second best effective field goal percentage for a defense. So, are they benefiting from teams missing a bunch of threes? Are they just leaving guys open? I haven't watched enough Warriors to really give you an answer on that, but it'll be fun to kind of see, because the Cavs are hitting every open three. The Warriors defense is, every open three their opponent's missing. So one of those is going to have to change. So it's just going to be a fun matchup, and we'll learn a lot about both teams from it.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me on one more Max Strus point that I meant to bring up, but then I blanked.
Oh, is he playing tomorrow?
Well, no, but it'll make sense. Give me a second here. You mentioned that the Warriors are just, potentially just letting bad shooters attempt 3-point shots. And I was thinking back to how the Cavs are shooting lights out so far to start the year from the 3-point line, but they're actually 18th in corner 3-point percentage right now. One guy who could help that quite a lot in the future is Max Strus, a knockdown corner 3-point shooter. We wanted him to take more last season and never felt like the Cavs really unlocked that. Hopefully Kenny manages to make that a staple of this offense, because Max Strus in that corner would really, really help their percentage there. But yeah,
they're shooting a high frequency, right, from the corner.
I'm not sure. I didn't check. I just know that they were.
It's a lot.
They were 18.
I'm pretty sure it's a lot higher. Yeah, but yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. But I do think it's good to let everyone know, because I know the Warriors over the last few years have kind of sucked, and maybe they'll prove to suck this year too. Maybe they're off to a hot start and it's a little fluky. We'll see. But I do want to just mention how good they've been to kind of put it into perspective for Cavs fans who maybe haven't been paying attention. The Warriors are 7-1. Now, Steph Curry is only averaging 21 points per game, but they are winning behind his shot making. And really, it's the elite defense behind him right now. The Warriors, I believe, are just one of 3 teams right now, including the Thunder, Cavs. I think the Celtics might be in there too, to rank top 5 in both offense and defense to start the season. I feel comfortable saying this is the Cavs' biggest challenge of the season so far. And it won't be the end of the world if they lose. Doesn't mean that none of this other stuff matters, but it would sure as hell be encouraging if they pull out another win and improve to 10-0. They'd be the first team since the Warriors in 2015-16 to start a season 10-0. Hopefully they'll get a better end result than the Warriors did that year. Hopefully they'll actually get the ring, but hey, it's going to be a great matchup, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is really interesting is that Steve Kerr is famously going with like a 12-man rotation at times, which also reminds you of his lead assistant coach for the last several seasons. Kenny Atkinson is doing something kind of similar. So there's a lot of similarities between these two teams, even though there are also stark differences as well. With like the Cavs have the 2 bigs, Mitchell and Garland are very different than Steph Curry. So that's, I think it's just like a really fun basketball matchup from that perspective, which, like it was a big game against the Knicks. I don't know if it's necessarily a fun basketball matchup between both teams. The same thing can be said about like the Lakers or the Bucks or whatever. But this, I think, is like just a kind of a really fun basketball, matchup with the similarities and differences.
Yeah. Watch out for Buddy Hield, a guy who famously torches the Cavs. But I will say one thing. The last time the Cavs and Warriors played in Cleveland, Ty Jerome had the best game of his career. Now he's going to be wearing a different uniform, but maybe the results will be the same.
You were at that
We
game.
can only hope. I was at that game. He absolutely torched us. Not only was I hoping to see Stephen Curry in person for the first time, and that dream was crushed, I at least thought, hey, the Cavs will get an easy win. The Warriors are resting 9 players. I don't even know who the hell Ty Jerome is. And here he comes hitting one-legged awkward floaters for like 1,000,000 points. And it was legitimately the worst Cavs game I've ever been to.
Yeah, that was – I do remember that. That was – the pod afterwards was pretty good, though.
Yeah, it's good content.
I would encourage everybody to listen to that.
it was good content, but it was awful. Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Junkyard Pod. Thank you to everyone who has been tuning in recently and showing support. If you enjoy the Junkyard Pod, then make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. The links are in the description. And while you're at it, hop over to Playback TV to watch along with me on Friday as the Cavs look to keep their streak alive versus Golden State. With all that being said, go Cavs.
I agree. Go Cavs. Brian, why aren't you joining us on these playback streams?